Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dolton, Illinois, is now at the center of a political firestorm that feels more like a reality TV scandal than a local government issue. Once seen as a rising political star, Henyard's leadership is now defined by accusations of corruption, financial mismanagement, and abuse of power, with many residents questioning whether her actions will bring down the village. The controversy surrounding her leadership has escalated to the point where she is being accused of embezzling millions of dollars in public funds, making questionable political appointments, and engaging in behavior that has deeply eroded public trust. The most shocking development came when local figure Chris Gonzalez accused Henyard of stealing over $2 million in public funds that were intended for community services and infrastructure projects. Gonzalez claims that the money was used for personal gain, including luxury purchases and dubious contracts that primarily benefited the mayor. His remarks at a recent public meeting sent shockwaves through the community, as people began to wonder just how much power Henyard had abused during her tenure. Many residents expressed outrage, with some accusing her of using taxpayer money to serve her own interests rather than addressing the critical needs of the village. Gonzalez wasn't the only one raising concerns. Tensions between Henyard and local officials have intensified, with many public events now marked by visible hostility between the mayor and the village trustees. This rising divide has put the town on edge, as residents are unsure just how much of the mayor's leadership is motivated by a genuine desire to serve the people or by a self-serving agenda that has left the community in turmoil. With every new accusation and each fresh scandal, Dolton's residents are left wondering if Henyard's term will ultimately destroy the village, or she can somehow redeem herself. The political situation in Dolton took an even more bizarre turn when, during the summer, banners featuring a large image of Henyard's face and the phrase "Super Mayor" were put up along the main route through the village. Though the project initially seemed harmless, it was quickly condemned by village trustees who accused Henyard of using taxpayer funds to promote her personal brand. The village workers who had been instructed to take down the banners were further enraged when it was revealed that the merchant responsible for creating the banners still owed the village $2,000 for service. Despite the public outrage, this debt remains unpaid, adding fuel to the fire of criticism surrounding Henyard's leadership, as if the banner scandal wasn't enough. Henyard's personal life has also come under intense scrutiny. She is currently facing a lawsuit from her landlord, who claims that Henyard and her boyfriend have not paid rent since August, despite the fact that the couple reportedly earns more than $3,000 a year in taxpayer-funded salaries. The landlord's lawsuit raises serious questions about Henyard's character and ability to handle her personal and professional responsibilities. The accusations also highlight a growing trend in her leadership, one of neglect and disregard for the very people she was elected to serve. The landlord's legal action further complicates Henyard's already tenuous position. In addition to the unpaid rent, the landlord has accused the mayor of neglecting her duties as both a tenant and a public official, citing a number of unresolved maintenance issues, including altered garage codes that made it difficult for Henyard to access the property. Despite mounting criticism, Henyard has refused to address the issue, a stance that has only enraged the people of Dolton further. Her defiance in the face of these legal troubles reflects her growing detachment from the reality of the issues facing the community. Rather than taking responsibility for her actions, Henyard continues to portray herself as a victim of political opponents and media attacks. At a recent public meeting, Henyard dismissed criticism from residents, making a sarcastic remark about how many people come to meetings to talk about nothing. The statement was widely seen as a clear indication of her growing disconnect from the concerns of the people she serves. This lack of empathy for the needs of the community has only deepened the divide between the mayor and Dolton's residents. Her refusal to engage with residents in any meaningful way has alienated her from the very people she was elected to represent, and many are now questioning whether she is fit to continue in office despite growing public outcry. Henyard's leadership continues to be marked by defiance and hostility toward those who challenge her. In one particularly shocking instance, Henyard publicly threatened to press charges against critics, further intensifying tensions with those who had already lost confidence in her. This outburst only served to distract from the real issues facing Dolton, such as mismanagement of public funds, mounting legal troubles, and widespread dissatisfaction with her leadership. Critics argue that Henyard is more focused on preserving her own power than on addressing the challenges facing the community, and her actions have created a sense of chaos and unease throughout the town. One of the most controversial decisions made by Henyard during this crisis was her appointment of Ronald Bohr as the new head of the police department in Dolton. The appointment raised immediate concerns among village trustees and local officials, particularly after it was revealed that Bohr had been marked as inactive by the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board for failing to meet requalification standards and missing critical paperwork. Despite these red flags, Henyard insisted on pushing forward with the appointment, even obtaining a judge's approval to appoint Bohr temporarily for 30 days while a permanent replacement was sought. This move angered many officials who accused Henyard of disregarding established protocols and governance standards in favor of political expediency. The appointment of Bohr has further fueled the rift between Henyard and village trustees, who have expressed concerns over the integrity of local government and public safety. Critics argue that this decision exemplifies Henyard's tendency to make unilateral decisions without consulting important stakeholders or considering the long-term consequences of her actions. The controversy surrounding Bohr's appointment has only deepened the political crisis in Dolton, with many residents fearing that Henyard's leadership will continue to spiral out of control. In addition to the police department controversy, Henyard has faced growing accusations of mismanagement of public funds. Reports suggest that millions of dollars intended for infrastructure development and community services have been misappropriated or outright embezzled, deepening Dolton's financial crisis. These revelations have further strained Henyard's already fragile political standing, and many residents are now calling for her resignation. The ongoing financial scandals, combined with Henyard's increasingly authoritarian leadership style and refusal to engage with the community, have led to widespread calls for new leadership. Political experts are closely monitoring the situation, and it appears that Henyard's tenure as mayor is nearing its end. The mounting legal and political challenges, combined with her defiant attitude and growing alienation from the public, have made it difficult for her to maintain support. With each new scandal and accusation, the pressure on Henyard continues to mount, and many in Dolton are now looking for a leader who can restore integrity and transparency to the local government as the situation continues to evolve. Dolton's residents are left to pick up the pieces of community torn apart by scandal and mismanagement. The growing public outcry has made it clear that Henyard's leadership has failed to live up to the expectations of the people she was elected to serve. The future of Dolton is uncertain, but it is increasingly likely that Henyard's time in office will soon come to an end. The community is ready for a fresh start and a new direction, one that prioritizes the needs of residents over personal gain and political power. As the legal battles, scandals, and public discontent continue to unfold, the question remains: will Henyard be held accountable for her actions, or will she manage to weather the storm and remain in power? Only time will tell, but the people of Dolton are watching closely, hoping for a resolution that will restore trust and accountability to their local government. The political crisis in Dolton serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of leadership rooted in honesty, integrity, and a commitment to the public good. The situation in Dune, Illinois, has become a political crisis of alarming proportions, with Mayor Tiffany Henyard's refusal to address fundamental issues facing the village, particularly the mismanagement of public funds, driving increasing frustration among residents. The village, which was once a hopeful community, is now grappling with serious financial difficulties, legal disputes, and widespread dissatisfaction with the mayor's leadership. Many residents are questioning if Dune will ever recover from the damage caused by Henyard's administration, while Henyard supporters continue to defend her, claiming she is merely resisting what they perceive as unjustified attacks. The mounting legal challenges and growing public discontent suggest that her leadership is rapidly becoming untenable. The future of Dune is uncertain, as the mayor's actions continue to fuel the ongoing political storm, and residents are left wondering how much longer Henyard can hold on to power amid the growing pressures. Henyard's confrontational strategy of resisting criticism and doubling down on her leadership approach has only deepened the rift between her and the people of Dune. Many believe that the mayor's refusal to address the urgent issues facing the community, ranging from maintenance issues with her landlord to the village's growing financial crisis, reinforces suspicions that she is either incapable or unwilling to confront the problems plaguing Dune. In an especially telling moment, Henyard's landlord commented that karma will eventually come up with you, just pay your rent, highlighting the mounting frustration not only with her personal issues, but also with her neglect of the village's broader concerns. Despite the growing call for action, Henyard has continued to dismiss her critics as politically motivated and accuse them of hindering Dune's progress. Her refusal to consider alternative viewpoints and her tendency to make snap decisions unilaterally have only served to exacerbate the crisis. One of the most controversial decisions in her tenure has been her appointment of Ronald Bohr as police chief. Despite strong criticism over Bohr's qualifications, including his failure to meet requalification standards, Henyard pushed forward with the appointment, raising concerns about her lack of accountability and transparency. Critics argue that this move illustrates her disregard for governance protocols and her tendency to make decisions without proper consultation or consideration of long-term consequences. Despite the growing chorus of dissent, Henyard supporters insist that she is standing firm against unjustified attacks and that her leadership is under siege by political opponents seeking to discredit her. However, these claims have only isolated her further from critics, who see her refusal to engage with the community's concerns as a sign of increasingly authoritarian and disconnected leadership. As the pressure continues to build, Henyard has announced her intention to run for re-election, a move that has only fueled further criticism. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has been one of Henyard's most outspoken critics. accusing the mayor of financial mismanagement and claiming that millions of dollars in public funds intended for community development and infrastructure projects have been embezzled or misused for personal gain. Lightfoot's accusations have struck a chord with many residents, who are frustrated by Henyard's lavish lifestyle amid the village's deteriorating public services, underfunded schools, and widening budget deficit. Reports have surfaced suggesting that some of the missing funds were used to finance Henyard's extravagant private parties and luxury purchases, further fueling public outrage. The contrast between Henyard's extravagant lifestyle and the financial hardship facing Dune's residents has become a focal point for critics. Many residents have accused the mayor of failing to prioritize the community's needs, and local activist James Carter captured the essence of the community's frustration when he said, "The mayor's actions reflect a complete disregard for the people she was elected to serve." Henyard's refusal to address the serious concerns of her constituents, coupled with her dismissive and confrontational attitude toward her critics, has only intensified the divide between her and the community. As Dune's financial situation continues to spiral and legal battles intensify, the future of the village hangs in the balance with Henyard's leadership increasingly under scrutiny. Many residents are questioning whether her administration can survive the mounting pressure. As her re-election campaign approaches, public discontent becomes even more apparent, especially as residents watch their town struggle, while the mayor appears to live a life of luxury. Critics argue that Henyard must take responsibility for her actions, as the dilapidated infrastructure in Dune serves as a stark reminder of her leadership's shortcomings. The town's financial woes and deteriorating public services have raised serious concerns about Henyard's ability to lead effectively in the face of these challenges. Henyard has remained defiant, offering a proposal to provide 100% homeowner tax refunds as a solution to ease the financial burden on residents. While she has framed this as a way to help struggling homeowners, the plan has been met with widespread skepticism. Many local officials, including Chris Gonzalez, a trustee for Dune Township, have raised serious concerns about the lack of clarity and detail surrounding the proposal, especially given the village's precarious financial situation. Critics argue that Henyard's plan may be little more than a political maneuver designed to divert attention from the scandals and financial mismanagement plaguing her administration. The lack of detail regarding how the tax refund program will be funded has only added to the skepticism, with many questioning how it could be implemented without further exacerbating the township's financial woes. As the gap between Henyard's ambitious proposals and the harsh realities on the ground becomes more apparent, residents have grown increasingly frustrated. Many believe that Henyard's actions are less about addressing the community's financial struggles and more about preserving her own failing reputation. Basic services in Dune, such as schools, public health, and infrastructure, have been neglected, with residents feeling that their needs are no longer being prioritized as the crisis deepens. The real question now is how much longer Henyard can cling to power while the village grapples with its most significant challenges. With legal disputes, financial mismanagement, and growing public dissatisfaction mounting by the day, her leadership appears increasingly untenable. Henyard's refusal to engage with critics constructively and her tendency to act unilaterally have alienated the very people she was elected to serve. Whether she can weather the storm and remain in office, or if she will be forced to step down, remains uncertain. The political climate in Dune is one of tension and division, with the mayor's defiance and refusal to acknowledge the village's serious issues only adding to the chaos. As the financial situation worsens and legal troubles mount, many are left wondering if Henyard's term will be remembered as a cautionary tale of political mismanagement. For now, Dune's residents continue to watch closely, hoping for a resolution that will bring much-needed change and restore the community's sense of trust in local government. As Mayor Tiffany Henyard's re-election campaign heats up, the growing disillusionment with her leadership suggests that her ability to secure another term may depend more on her ability to convince voters she can turn things around and on any real achievements during her time in office. With the future of Dune hanging in the balance, many are left wondering if a leader who has allowed their community to deteriorate can be trusted to guide it toward a better future, or if the mayor's promises are just another attempt to distract from the deeper issues at hand. The struggle for Dune's future seems to be a battle between Henyard's political survival and the desperate need for genuine change in the town. The deteriorating state of Dune's infrastructure has reached alarming levels. Roads, which were once the backbone of the community, are crumbling by the day. Local schools are struggling to provide even basic resources, and essential public services are overwhelmed. The growing discontent within the community has only been exacerbated by allegations of financial mismanagement. Reports indicate that federal funds meant for public welfare projects have been embezzled or misused, and as these concerns mount, residents are demanding accountability. Public scrutiny of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's administration has intensified, putting her leadership under the microscope. Critics argue that Henyard's failure to fully acknowledge the severity of the situation, whether it's a deteriorating infrastructure, the underfunded schools, or misuse of public funds, could ultimately lead to her political downfall. Despite mounting pressure from the community and growing dissatisfaction, Henyard's administration has yet to offer any meaningful solutions to address these issues. Instead, the mayor has repeatedly diverted attention with what many perceive as hollow promises and politically motivated schemes. One of the most notable of these schemes is her proposal to offer 100% homeowner tax refunds, which she presents as a way to ease the financial burden on residents. While the idea may seem appealing at first glance, it has been met with widespread skepticism. Many residents and officials, including Dune Township trustee Chris Gonzalez, view the proposal as a political ploy designed to shift focus away from the ongoing scandals and financial mismanagement plaguing her administration. With millions of dollars in federal funds allegedly missing and the township grappling with a significant budget deficit, the promise of tax refunds seems like little more than a desperate attempt to placate voters rather than a genuine effort to solve the community's pressing issues. The lack of clarity regarding how this tax refund program will be funded has only added to the skepticism, with many questioning how it could be implemented without further deepening the financial strain on the township. For many residents, it feels like a superficial gesture aimed more at protecting Henyard's reputation than addressing the actual problems facing Dune. As the proposal is rolled out, skepticism has only grown, with the tax refund now seen by many as nothing more than a diversionary tactic designed to deflect attention from the deeper issues within the administration. Dune's residents, many of whom have been left frustrated and disillusioned by years of neglect and mismanagement, are becoming increasingly cynical about Henyard's ability to lead effectively. The lack of transparency within her administration, combined with the mounting legal and financial challenges, has eroded the community's trust. Locals feel that Henyard is more focused on her political survival than on resolving the real problems that affect their daily lives. Many believe that the proposed tax refund is just the latest in a series of attempts to divert attention from the administration's ongoing failures. For instance, allegations of corruption and embezzlement of funds intended for public welfare have painted Henyard's leadership in a negative light. Many residents accuse her of prioritizing her personal and political interests over the needs of her constituents. As a result, public frustration has reached a boiling point, and the community is demanding that Henyard take responsibility for her actions. The mayor's refusal to acknowledge the gravity of the situation only fuels a growing sense of alienation and distrust among residents. Critics contend that her continued focus on hollow promises and political maneuvers only deepens the crisis. Further alienating her from the very people she is supposed to serve. The community is beginning to see through these tactics, feeling increasingly duped by her failure to make meaningful progress on the issues that matter most. Many residents now view the tax refund proposal as little more than a smokescreen designed to distract them from the broader issues that have come to define Henyard's tenure: financial mismanagement, corruption, and scandal. The longer Henyard clings to this strategy, the more it appears that she is out of touch with the reality of the situation. Her focus seems to be more on her own political survival than on making the tough decisions required to lead the community through its challenges. With each passing day, the gap between the mayor's promises and the community's needs grows wider, and the prospects for resolving Dune's issues under her leadership seem increasingly remote. The public's disillusionment with Henyard is palpable, and it is becoming more clear that her leadership is on the brink of collapse. The growing discrepancy between Mayor Tiffany Henyard's rhetoric and the harsh lived realities of the people she is meant to serve has become impossible to ignore. Dune, a town that has been struggling financially for years, now faces the consequences of allegations of abuse, mismanagement, and neglect under her leadership, leaving little hope that government funding or subsidies will provide the much-needed relief. The town's unmet needs are glaringly visible, from the dilapidated roads and infrastructure to the overcrowded, underfunded schools and overburdened public services. Despite these obvious signs of decline, Henyard continues to make promises of financial assistance and improvements. But for many residents, these promises ring hollow. Many locals now believe that Henyard's promises are detached from the realities of their everyday struggles. They see her resistance to public pressure as a sign of disregard for their concerns, and her failure to address the root causes of the town's problems only further deepens their disillusionment, as her promises of financial aid and infrastructure improvement seem increasingly irrelevant to the pressing issues on the ground. The gap between Henyard's public statements and the real lived experiences of her constituents continues to widen. Her leadership has consistently failed to respond to the most pressing needs of the community, and this failure is further compounded by her persistent resistance to accountability. Instead of engaging with the concerns of residents and taking meaningful action, Henyard has continued to prioritize her own political survival, relying on empty promises and rhetoric that only exacerbate the growing dissatisfaction among the people of Dune. The sense of frustration and disillusionment is palpable, as the gap between what Henyard has promised and the reality of life in Dune becomes more and more evident. Residents are increasingly cynical, feeling that they are being misled by a mayor who seems more focused on protecting her political future than on addressing the needs of the community. Meanwhile, charges of financial mismanagement and corruption continue to mount, further tarnishing Henyard's reputation. Allegations of embezzlement and misuse of public funds have only intensified, further fueling public perception that Henyard is either unable or unwilling to properly manage the town's resources. As these charges loom larger, her chances of retaining public support grow slimmer by the day. It seems increasingly likely that Henyard will face serious political and legal repercussions for her administration's failures. The mounting pressure from the community is becoming impossible to ignore, and public ire is growing as residents demand accountability for the mismanagement of their town's resources. Citizens are beginning to question how much longer Henyard can cling to power before the weight of her failures and the growing list of scandals forces her to step down the harsh realities of life in Dune, coupled with the public's increasing distrust of Henyard's leadership, have left many wondering if she can survive this political and legal storm. The question now is not if, but when Henyard's leadership will collapse under the weight of her failures. The community, once hopeful for change, now seems resigned to the idea that Henyard has neither the will nor the ability to turn Dune around. If she cannot find a way to address the community's dire needs and take responsibility for the mismanagement of public funds, it is likely that her time in office will soon come to an end. Continued dissatisfaction with her leadership and the growing calls for accountability have made it clear that Henyard's ability to lead Dune is rapidly diminishing. Residents are demanding action, and the growing disconnect between the mayor's promises and the community's reality makes it harder for her to maintain the support she needs. It is becoming increasingly difficult to see how she can survive politically as the weight of her administration's failures becomes impossible to ignore. As this saga unfolds, the residents of Dune are left to wonder if they will ever find the leadership they so desperately need.